And so we have plenty of research comparing Java and Python, as you might expect given that those were the two most common languages taught at universities. So we'll just quickly go over some of these results. We've got a 2023 study that basically, how do they make these studies, you might be wondering? Because I said it's kind of hard to define what's best in a way that's measurable in a controlled setting. So the controlled setting here is generally that some university has a bunch of students taking Computer Science 1 and or Computer Science 2, and they want to do a study about languages. And so they take, say, 100 of these students, and they split them into two groups. One group will get Java, one group will get Python, and then they measure them in different ways. They might give them a concept test that's sort of language agnostic at the end of the semester. They might also measure things like how many syntax errors do they have when they compile their code, or how many times do they have to resubmit a given assignment, because if you submit one time, hey, you got it right pretty quickly, you understood well. If you had to resubmit 32 times, okay, that was hard for you, that was a headache, right? So they can measure things like this. And so in the first study, it was syntax errors. And so they found that Python just has fewer syntax errors, so that indicates the syntax may be easier. And that's good. You can worry about the syntax less, focus on the concepts and the fundamentals that I mentioned more. The second one, again, it's an older study, and this actually compared Python to a number of other languages, several of which had C-style syntax with the curly brackets rather than the indentation that Python uses to define code blocks. And they found that Python has syntax that people make fewer mistakes with as compared to the other C-style languages they looked at. And C, this one took a different approach. This is a textbook analysis. So what they did here was they got a number of Python textbooks and Java textbooks, and they kind of ran, I guess, like a word count for different concepts. They figured out how many times these different textbooks mentioned different concepts, and they found that the Java textbooks mentioned core concepts more than textbooks about Python. And some people might say this suggests a better focus on core concepts in the Java books. I don't know that I'd read too much into that. It is kind of a different approach to making a study. But the textbooks did seem to mention these fundamentals a bit more than the Python textbooks. But I don't know, I wouldn't read too much into that one. Here's an older study, and this would have been, I think, given the time for Python 2, but they found that Python's simpler syntax meant fewer errors, and they found actually fewer logical errors and fewer syntax errors, so that's nice. And finally, this one is the one that had the chart we looked at, the chart with the two columns. This is from 2015, and they said that the Python learners had a better understanding of core concepts. The idea here is that maybe because the Python group had to spend less time learning the syntax, they could kind of spend a bit more effort and time learning these core concepts. So maybe Python does have, Python learners, the Python groups had a better understanding of core concepts. At least that's what they found in 2015 study.